absolutely nothing done. Okay, I got it on. I don't know, without Carl, our man, to run the camera. But I'm going to go ahead and just go through the whole spiel in the fact that being recording it and trying to put it onto YouTube. So, and we have a new lady that was supposed to be starting tonight that somebody here at church, I guess, signed up. So,
yeah, my lady was going to come, but she's like, oh, I'm going to lay down, and then.
Yeah. I think once we get more word about it out, that it's not a rigid, oh, this is keto, this is the way you do the diet, and we're going to make you, hold you accountable. It's not like the old Weight Watchers where you have to come in and stand on the, scale and go ding, ding, and pay your way. And all
she needs it. She's been needing to change. The doctor told her she's supposed to change her diet. She's, obviously overweight. She does have bipolar. She has all kinds of health issues. And so I just keep trying to, she's got to do it.
Right. And that is something, well, let me just do a little introduction first, since we do have the camera running, I think, since I don't have a cameraman. Anyways, it is week 8 already of Easy Peasy Keto. I cannot believe you even got me to do this, and now we enjoy doing it. So, I think that's what it is. And the more we study about it, not only for our own bodies, but the more information we're taking in, the more we just feel such a need to share it all. To know so many people who are suffering in so many different ways. And I was explaining to, telling Darren, that this week has been, a lot of research that was just really hitting home. Mm-hmm. And to know that we all know so many people who have dementia, be it our own loved ones or just acquaintances, members here at the church or where you go to work at or whatever, just people in the community, or you have loved ones who have family members with it. And to know that so much of it could be preventable with changing our diet. It's one of those things that make you kind of want to cry, that why have we been fed all this misinformation and stuff. So, but anyways, Ken, you want to go ahead and open up with your Bible verse and thoughts. And his Bible verses have really been opening up another line of communication between us too. Last week, usually it is Ken writes it all up and I'll go, yeah, okay. But the last 2 weeks, we've been just having a detailed, descriptive communication over
heated fellowship?
Well, maybe. I like that word, heated fellowship.
All good stuff.
That's right. I think Bennett referred to that with Lauren. Yeah, I'll have to remember that. So, okay.
Good discussions, though. Yeah. Really good.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay. This is week 8, Easy Peasy Keto, and verse and comments. All right, we're coming out of the book of Psalms, chapter 39, verse 13 and 14 in the NLT Bible. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knitted them together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. I would like to say, think about there are 7 billion people on this planet, but there is no one else with your fingerprints or with your retina scan. You are unique. You are an original design created by God. When I get the urge to eat unhealthy foods, I have to ask myself, is it worth it? And I pray to God to guide me through this shortcoming. Knowing when I criticize myself about this shortcoming, I am also criticizing God, who made me. But God doesn't make mistakes. I do. Never give in to the lies of the standard American diet. It does not work, and I am living proof of it. Thank you for listening, and God bless.
Thank you very much for sharing that. It is, I guess, surprising to me in just getting back to being in church and reading the Bible. And I mentioned last week, we have 3 different versions of the Bible sitting right there in our living room. And I need to go in and look at the other versions so often to get the interpretation of what's being said. And his little Bible verse here had me kind of tearing up, thinking, he made me. I am special. And I've got to use me to go out there and reach others. I have been invited to be on a weekly podcast. Is that what you call it?
Yes.
To be invited as a guest with somebody who's been on for quite a while. We have tagged him, Dustin, from Indianapolis, Keto Simple. And so it's quite interesting to follow him. And one thing that I just recently told him that, we'll have lots to talk about, both of us being former 400-pound people. Mm-hmm. We've come a long ways. And even though I didn't do it all with keto, it's still, this is the road I'm traveling. And I have been for over 150 pounds. Mm-hmm. No, 120 pounds or something now, I guess. So, but you want to put up the first video on foods to prevent Alzheimer's with Dr. Sean Baker. I don't know if we've played very many of his videos. It seems like I always go back to the same 3.
Yeah, you played one of his.
One of his. And it's hard to, he is strictly carnivore. And you see him, he's a puny little sickly looking. I believe he's a cardiologist. I get my doctors confused at what all their specialties are, but he is a surgeon.
Hey folks, Dr. Sean Baker. Hey, let's talk about something that I think is going to be, or really already is becoming, a huge public health crisis. It's going to affect pretty much most people that we know. This is Alzheimer's disease. Did you know that, according to the Alzheimer's Association, currently right now, about 6.5 million Americans over 65 are living with Alzheimer's in 2022. That number is projected to go up dramatically. And there is something you can do today to prevent Alzheimer's for you or someone you love. And this video will break down what Alzheimer's is, how it works, and what could be causing it, and some of the emerging research around some of the main culprits, and then some of the ways you might be able to prevent Alzheimer's disease. I'll give you my take at the end, and that's per usual. So let's start off briefly going over what is Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's is a progressive neurodegenerative disease typically impacting adults 65 years or older, but unfortunately we're seeing in younger patients, now even into their 40s. Early symptoms of Alzheimer's disease include memory loss or general decline in cognitive ability. However, as the disease progresses, speech abilities decline, personality changes can emerge, behavioral issues can start to show up in those who are near the end stages of the disease and can often become violent and combative. This is in large part because of the patient's brain tissue atrophies as the brain progresses. Now, plaques composed of a protein called beta amyloid can build up in the brain tissue. Now, although this was once thought that these plaques were causing the disease, researchers now are theorizing that the plaques are actually intended to play a protective role in a merely response to tissue damage in the brain. It's similar to why a plaque starts to form in heart disease as initially a protective strategy. Unfortunately, in both cases, something that's causing chronic damage, making the plaque form in the first place, is likely where the underlying cause is. So blockages restrict blood flow and nutrients to the tissues. Through this can be a secondary issue. What's causing the damage in the first place? Well, there are a number of thoughts, but some people and many researchers believe that Alzheimer's is related to damage as a result of insulin resistance. Some people have named Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. This 2011 study, published in the European Journal of Internal Medicine, researchers believe it should be considered a neuroendocrine disorder of the brain due to the correlation between insulin resistance in the brain and early Alzheimer's disease. Now, what's causing insulin resistance in the first place? Let's talk about a few diet-related issues that might be leading to that. So, first potential problem is fructose. So, a 2023 paper just published suggests that fructose may be a key driver in brain damage related to Alzheimer's disease. Researchers theorize that this may have in large part an evolutionary purpose for fructose. Our ancient ancestors developed a foraging response when food might have been scarce, and this required a focus in exploratory behavior and change in energy partitioning and risk-taking efforts. And so at that time, foraging effort was set in motion by the consumption of fructose. Metabolism of fructose reduced blood flow to the brain and increased blood flow to the visual cortex, allowing for a heightened perception of one's territory as it foraged and or hunted. This is what researchers call our ancestors' survival switch. Unfortunately, in our modern environment, fructose is always present. Eating fructose at every meal, every single day, can create chronic decrease in blood flow to certain areas of the brain, reducing some of the nutrient availability for the brain's many functions. This causes this ancient survival switch to be chronically turned on, causing physiological stress, unintentional overeating, and reduced access to nutrients for the brain. Moreover, when fructose and its metabolic byproduct uric acid are produced in the brain, it creates inflammation and damage, which could lead to Alzheimer's down the road. Other research shows that this can happen when one consumes excess fructose in any form, especially when it comes from fruit juices, sucrose, or high fructose corn syrup, where most people consume excess amounts of fructose. Now, high carbohydrate diets can prolong insulin signaling produced by eating excessive carbohydrates, and this can lead to or exacerbate insulin resistance over time. This insulin resistance blocks energy circulation to the brain, resulting in plaques that produce Alzheimer's. And the research reinforces this, showing that a diet filled with processed carbohydrates, particularly, is correlated with causing or worsening Alzheimer's disease. And while fructose and processed carbs can conceivably contribute to Alzheimer's disease, there are a few foods that could potentially improve or prevent Alzheimer's. Dietary cholesterol. Think about it. Cholesterol is present in every single cell of our body. And in fact, 25% of the body's cholesterol is located in our brain, which takes up just 2% of our overall body mass. This is because the brain is so rich in cholesterol and has many, many functions in its brain. It functions as an antioxidant, insulates neurons, and holds up the neural network and helps synapses form and fire appropriately. A 2011 study showed that a deficiency in dietary cholesterol leads to impaired neuron function, disrupted glutamate signaling, increased oxidative damage, mitochondrial dysfunction, and ultimately cellular death. That said, simply including plenty of dietary cholesterol, fat from eggs, meat, and shellfish can support healthy neurons and brain functions. A ketogenic diet, that's not typically an ingredient, but it has a number of potential benefits. Generally, a ketogenic diet is very low to zero carbohydrate. It has somewhere between 78 or 80% of calories coming from fat, 15 to maybe 30% of calories coming from protein, and between 0 and 10% coming from carbohydrate. This diet is known in the literature for healing cellular metabolism and has been used as a therapy for many Alzheimer's patients. This is because the ketones, the internal byproducts of metabolizing fat, are an alternate fuel source for the brain when carbohydrates cannot be metabolized. This allows those with insulin resistance, like Alzheimer's patients, to get fuel and resources to the brain. Meat. There is research that shows that the more meat that is consumed, the less chance of contracting Alzheimer's disease. And alternatively, the less meat you consume, the higher your risk of contracting Alzheimer's disease. This is likely because meat has many components that can heal the body and the brain, including collagen, cholesterol, essential amino acids, dietary cholesterol, and essential fatty acids. Now, in conclusion, Alzheimer's is going to be a problem. It is not very easy for many people to deal with Alzheimer's, particularly if we see younger and younger people contracting Alzheimer's disease. Can you imagine if you are a 28-year-old, 30-year-old person and all of a sudden your 55-year-old mother or father starts developing Alzheimer's disease, and you have to care for them. You either have to put them in a facility, which tend to be very, very expensive. You're probably spending, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year, which many people don't have laying around, or you bring them into your home, which particularly if you have small children, that can be an extremely, extremely stressful situation here. The Alzheimer's community generally recognizes there are no good drugs to treat this, and that's why they're rapidly approving drugs. Even if they have little to no efficacy, they're very expensive and they have lots of side effects are still getting approved. So we don't have a good cure for Alzheimer's disease. So the best we can do at this point is to prevent it. And that is going to be done with diet, lifestyle, nutrition, exercise. According to certain things like PET scans, we can start to see the metabolism in the brain, even in people in their 30s, as they can develop Alzheimer's disease. So this is something to keep an eye on, to watch out for. This is a disease that will literally, bankrupt families. One of the things that's interesting in observation that I had a grandmother that died, of Alzheimer's disease, as they become less and less able to fuel their brain through glucose because of the insulin resistance, they tend to crave sweets intensely. If you talk to anybody that works around old folks' homes or Alzheimer's patients, you'll see they often have a voracious appetite for things like cakes and cookies and sweet things because they can't fuel their brain. The brain will turn on without that stuff. So anyway, think about that. I can't imagine the quality of life you have when you don't even know who you are and you can't defend yourself, either physically or even mentally. It's got to be a horrible place to be. So let's avoid that, guys. Eat plenty of good, high quality food. Stop the junk food, and let's take care of this, guys. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, folks, Dr. Schoenberger. Hey, let's talk about something that I think is going.
And I think most of us know what Alzheimer's and dementia and Lewy body and all of them are. But I know, having worked with so many people in the nursing homes who have those diseases, and to see even relatives just become vegetables in their own body, and to think that maybe it's preventable. But one thing that really hit home this week in doing our studying and research is the fact that they don't just wake up even at 55, 60 with it. They've been developing it from when we don't know. And that's the sad part. We've got to start making, I'm already older than a lot of them, but the younger people more aware. And you as younger people need to clean it up. But
I'm considered one.
and then when we think of our loved ones, our children, our grandchildren, nieces, nephews, at what age? It seems like the younger we could start people eating healthy, the better off we are. And I see my desire to educate and share my story going towards that, working with the younger people. And the second video we have, and I'm just going to go ahead and go on through them here. I do have them on the list, the two that we are watching. So when others come in, they can catch up at home with it, or come by the house so we could have discussions, and etc. too. So the next one is, can you prevent Alzheimer's dementia with diet? And by Dr. Berry, who has been a doctor, family physician for over 20 years. I'm not even sure how far beyond that now. And he feels like his mission is to make up for all the wrong he did when he was that stupid doctor who told people, oh, eat less, move more, and whatever. And then as his weight creeped up and he realized this doesn't work, and then to find out as he's gone through all this processing that the damage he was doing to his patients by teaching them what he had been taught. And I know that hits home with me. How many times in the last nursing home, no, you can't have this candy. Here, have an apple.
Same thing.
To all the diabetic patients, yeah. Oh, no, you can't eat that, but eat this, and it was no good for them. But this is the way we have all been trained. So trying to reprogram up here, it's a good thing that I'm eating lots of fatty meat now so that I can get this, all the cholesterol up here replacing and juicing this brain back up. So if you want to go ahead and start it, Darren. And the handout.
Hey, this is Dr. Barry.
I'll tell you about
this short video. I want to talk to you about how the ketogenic diet can most likely help prevent dementia and perhaps even treat. There's a huge epidemic in the Western world of dementia, both Alzheimer's type and other types. And if we could do something to prevent this epidemic from expanding and possibly even to treat the people with early Alzheimer's and early dementia, wouldn't that be awesome? That's what we're going to talk about today. First, take 1 second and click that subscribe button, please, and then click the little bell right beside it. That way, every time I get a bright idea, you'll be one of the very first to know about it. Now, let's talk about dementia and how we're going to prevent it from ever happening in you, okay? First of all, the human brain and the human body have been on this planet for many, many, many eons, right? It has had to go through desperate times, very lean times, long periods of not having much to eat at all. Sometimes we feast and sometimes we fast, right? The human brain and the human body, in fact, has developed two separate systems in order to fuel itself. One is burning glucose, which we all know about, and what we've been doing in America for the last 50, 60 years is eating a very high-carb, whole-grain diet. And our body runs on that. We don't die if we eat that. But more and more, the research is coming out to show that we probably suffer long-term with increased epidemics of chronic disease, of autoimmune disease, and of dementia. So what you want to do is, since your brain can use two separate fuel systems, the first one's glucose, the second one is ketones, right? Our brain has developed this method as a strategy so that when we go through periods of fasting or starvation, when there's just no food around, our brain can switch right over to burning ketones for energy, as can the rest of our body. This is a natural thing. This is not something new. This is something that's been going on since human beings have been human beings on this planet, okay? So your brain is perfectly happy to burn glucose, and it's also perfectly happy to burn ketones. It doesn't really care which it burns, as long as it has one or the other. Now, there's a theory about dementia and Alzheimer's that as people age, as people get older, their brain gets worse and worse at using glucose to fuel itself. It becomes almost unable to efficiently burn glucose as energy anymore. And so the theory is that people with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, their brain's actually starving to death because these people are eating these high-carb, whole-grain diets, and they're not eating any good saturated fats, and so the body can't really, it doesn't have enough ketones to fuel the brain. And so even though the person looks like they're well-fed, the brain is actually starving, and that's a theory. No one's proved that to be false or true yet, but that's just a theory that I find very intriguing. The next thing is that we used to think that the brain, once it was formed, once you were 25 or so and your brain was fully developed, that was it. You never made new neurons or brain cells. That was the brain that you carried with you for the rest of your life. We now know that that's absolutely false. About every third year, you have completely replaced the cells in your brain, okay? So every 3 years, you have a new brain. And so with that being said, that's a very important concept to understand. Not only are we just trying to fuel our brain, we're having to rebuild our brain every 2 to 3 years. And so that makes it, what you eat, vitally important, because you're not just trying to put fire or wood in the fire. You're actually having to rebuild the fireplace every 2 to 3 years. And in order to do that, you have to feed your body the proper things, or you can't rebuild your brain properly. And that could lead to long-term chronic issues like dementia. Dementia is something that happens late in life. And so really, there's not really a way that evolution or genetics could play a big role in that, because really genetic things stop mattering once you get past the age of reproduction, right? Evolutionary things, evolution doesn't really reach into old age. There's no evolutionary advantage to doing that because we're not reproducing at that age. And so you can't really blame much of dementia on genetics, right? Now, some of the early dementias that children get that are 1 in 10 million rare, that may have something to do with genetics. I'm talking today exclusively about the dementia of old age and Alzheimer's disease. Here's the kicker. Your brain is made of fat, and your cell membranes are made of fat and cholesterol, okay? So if your brain is made of fat, and you rebuild your brain every 3 years, then wouldn't you need fat to rebuild your brain with? Wouldn't you need cholesterol to make those new cell membranes with? You see my point? And so now that we know that the brain is not a static thing that never changes, it changes all the time. You're making new brain cells every day. And every third year, you've completely replaced your brain with new cells. So you've got to eat fat. You have to eat good, healthy, saturated fat to rebuild your brain, to build the cell membranes of every cell in your body, right? The nuclear membranes have to have fat or they cannot be rebuilt. So it's really silly to say you need to eat a super low-fat diet. In fact, when you look at the curve of dementia, right, it follows perfectly with the curve of people eating high-carb, whole-grain diets. It's the same curve. So maybe there might be a connection there, right? We know that now experts are starting to call dementia diabetes of the brain because it looks like the brain itself becomes resistant to the glucose and the insulin can't push it into the brain cells anymore. So it looks just like type 2 diabetes of the brain. So why don't we just rethink the way we feed our brain and start feeding our brain what it actually needs, which is healthy, saturated fats. Studies are showing more and more every day that even small increases in blood sugar levels can really increase your risk of developing dementia. And so type 2 diabetics are at super high risk of developing dementia later in life or even earlier in life. So it's really important that you understand that your brain is made of fat. You replace your brain every 2 to 3 years. And if you don't feed your body the right materials, the right brain-building materials to rebuild your brain, then you're going to rebuild an inferior brain, which is more likely to develop dementia later on. Now, if you really enjoy this and you know someone who's getting older, your mom, your aunt, your uncle, please share this with them on their social media because they need to hear this message. For someone in their 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, the clock is ticking. And every day, if they don't feed their body what their body needs to build new healthy brain cells, they're a little closer to dementia, okay? So also, if you really enjoy my videos and you want to help me have more time to make more videos, please click on my Patreon link down below. You can throw a buck or two at me and it helps give me more time to make more videos just like this. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.
Thank you,
Hey, this is Dr. Berry.
Thank you, Dr. Berry. Let's see if I can adjust the camera somewhat to pick me up when I get back up here. Isn't it sad for what we don't know? What we think we knew, but we really don't know.
It's crazy how they call that now.
Type 3 diabetes. And you think about, well, your own mother living independently in the house next door. And, you know, where might she be headed? Or, you know, it's just really sad for all of us knowing loved ones. And I know people who are much younger who have so many of these signs and symptoms of dementia, some type of Alzheimer's disease. This list, I gave you 2 different sheets here. And the one, medications that could cause dementia. And then other drugs which have activities and could pose a risk. But these 2 pages of medications that are prescribed out there just literally to so many people. And I look through the list and I think of the ones that I have personally taken over the years. And even seeing Advil PM, Aleve PM, Benadryl, Tylenol PM, and then Unisom. I'm wondering what that PM is, which I believe it to be Benadryl. Normally it's like Tylenol, and Benadryl makes a Tylenol PM. But so many of these medications are not only just given to people, Zyrtex for Tagamet, just common medications, and they are given, and the way I understand, a lot of medication should be given for a prescribed length of time. But how many people do you know, and I know myself, took them for years, some of these medications. And it's just like common, doctor just refills that prescription for another 3 months, and the pharmacy fills it, and then they call the doctor another 3 months without even really following up and checking to see if the person still needs that medicine. And that's probably has a lot to do with why I was on over 20 prescription drugs when I started keto 2.5 years ago. And so think of your loved ones and this list of medications and how you might be able to help reevaluate or share this with somebody. And then we put together and we watched every one of these videos on the list, plus many others. But to have this many different doctors, Dr. Berry, Dr. Baker, Dr. Ekberg, Dr. Berg, Dr. Saivaz, the diet doctor, his last name is Shearer, Mary Newport, Mark Hyman, and then there were so many more that know that we can do something with Alzheimer's, dementia, the whole realm of those now. One thing, Dr. Mary Newport, she actually got involved, from what I understand, in watching some of her videos because her husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I remember if it was dementia or one of the mental conditions. Well, we don't have enough fat floating around up here. And he didn't even qualify for a study because he couldn't do the requirements of drawing a clock and putting the numbers on, different things that they wanted him to be able to do. And she decided, now, wait a minute, I'm not going to stop here. And she proceeded to change his diet, just do a lot more research herself, even though she was specialized in neonatal, the little tiny babies that are born well before time. But she wasn't going to stop and let her husband just die, become the shell of the man. And in listening to some of her videos, he turned around. He then qualified for the study. He went on to actually go back to working. It was really interesting to hear her firsthand knowledge of her own personal research and using a test subject, her own husband, on it. Dr. Ekberg, there was something that, the 10 warning signs that you already have dementia. This one here was, I think, Ken's favorite, if you can call any of the videos favorites. So, please.
It was simple for anybody to understand.
Right. It was a longer video, 22 minutes. But yeah, very good basic information. So do you have, Leslie, people in your family, loved ones, acquaintances that you can share this information with? Here comes some wayward. First off, how is the kitty? Not good. Oh, we're sorry. So Evelyn and Carl have just come in and joined us. And our subject for tonight is dementia. And we've watched a couple of videos.
You forgot to show up on
Yeah, that's okay. On the list here are the top two are the videos we watched here tonight.
Okay, make sure you watch things.
Yes, please do. It is, and then a list of the medications. I figured you might find this one really interesting with your family members, your parents who are either in a nursing home and you having to spend so much time in the nursing homes going to visit your parents. It's scary. 2 full pages of medications that could cause dementia. So, and like I said, the first 2 are on the list of the videos, are the ones that we watched this evening. And then Dr. Ekberg, 10 warning signs you already have dementia, was a real hit home that made it very easy to understand what the heck was going on, and scary because none of this starts, as I was saying earlier, when you're diagnosed. It has started 10, 20, 30 years earlier.
Stacy, what
Yeah.
AC activity?
Pardon?
What AC activity? These all say moderate, high, or low AC activity. I didn't know what the AC activity was.
Of course, you're going to ask me questions that I don't think I have the answer to right now. Remember, I've been under the weather all week. You're lucky you got our list. I am completely at activities. Oh, my phone's got tied up. High AC activities. Well, please, thank you. Maybe they have more effect on the brain. I don't know. Of course. Oh, anyways.
I know everything.
No, I am still trying to learn so much of this as we go through. And as I have said, I am so shocked, appalled at not only what I don't know, but what I taught, what I administered, the complete opposite end of all of this. So.
I'd like to share something.
Please.
I did with you a while back before I even, started eating the keto. My work, I would carry a spiral notebook with me and write notes in it all day long, or whatever I'm supposed to be doing. I've noticed it, you've noticed it, that I don't need that list no more since I've been eating the keto way of life. The fog kind of lifted, the memories coming back. But I remember carrying a little spiral notebook for 30 plus years, and my job is to write notes in, and I'd fill one of them up probably in a week. It's just, I don't need to do that anymore. And
He did. When we first got together, he
I
always
will-
had in his shirt pocket or his coveralls, he's my hillbilly. And he always had those little notebooks, little spirals across the top and
For
whatever.
yourself, Ken?
Yes,
Or
for
just-
myself.
For himself, just so he could
Both
remember.
work and so much on to do that I just couldn't remember, and I don't need it today.
And he joked it was his honeydew list.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've quit giving him more things to add to the honeydew list that he doesn't need it, or no, there's a lot less brain fog altogether.
He's in ketosis all the time, so he doesn't need to write it down. And
Right.
he's moving so quick.
But he is still male, so don't give him 100% credit
I
now.
give him 100% credit, and then
No.
you can take it from him.
I still
So AC means adenylyl cyclase, and it is a type of enzyme and it helps to metabolize sugars and other things. And there are toxins secreted by pathogenic bacteria, such as lists of various bacteria, and create proteins and enable host cells to do all kinds of activities. So high and low, you don't want. But there's all kinds of things on here, and it's weird. It's very scientific-y.
I get into all that scientific-y stuff, but I bypass it.
It was interesting because it really talks about how when it's too high or too low, things just don't work.
So you don't want it either. You want to take the middle road.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting that we completely replace our brain, in a 3-year period. I knew that, like for myself, joint, not replacement like I've had in my shoulder and my hip and etc., but the fixing of the collagens and the bones and the muscles and everything, how they have improved with doing this. So why, if my knee is well enough, I don't need to have it replaced, that the doctors wanted to do when the pandemic hit, because I was having trouble walking at that time. Why wouldn't it work on our brain the same way? So maybe when I get my new brain in another 3 years, I'll be real smart. So, what do we have going on? We're kind of rushing through it. Leslie's going to leave at 7:30. She's got to go to work. You guys got here late, but we'll get to continue talking, whatever. But what's going on with church, Darren?
Well, they're collecting things for the Thanksgiving meal they're doing with City Mission. There's bins out in the lobby if somebody wants to donate. There's also these sheets with what they need for it. Then they're also doing the Christmas shoe boxes for Bigelow School this year. Again, if you pack your own, about $25 worth of stuff, and get a wow item, a toy of some kind, but make sure it's for either a boy or a girl, because they could go to either one. So, and you can pack school supplies, things like that in it.
You don't get to keep one.
And so that's really all I've got. Nathan didn't send out an email this week to tell us what to make sure we covered. So,
well, I do gotta share that since I got that little chocolate paper.
Yeah.
I've just changed my whole entire life. Like I can't believe all these years that it, even like I used to be able to never, like if there was sugar in front of me, I would try, but I couldn't do it. So the last probably 2 weeks, I have been doing really well. And I made my little, well, because I did 2 funky ones of the chocolate. The next one I want to do a caramel macchiato one.
Uh-huh. I know that we really enjoy having chaffles made at home. Since we've been doing Triple B and E, I haven't been making them because besides doing the Triple B and E, I also keep dairy in my diet. I have such an running lips, altered digestive tract.
Yeah.
And for my absorption, doctor really recommended I keep calcium in my diet. So I do. And so I think that'll be the first thing that we discussed it today, that Ken will add back into his diet after we're done with this, to see how his body reacts to having calcium put in, or the dairy put in, because some people just don't do good with it. And so once we know if he can have cheese again and it's gonna be good on his body, we'll be making a lot more chocolates. I'm doing something a little different this week. for our drawing, instead of just trying to come up with a little one-on something to give to you guys, I just kind of put together a pile here, and I'm going to let you choose whoever the winner is. We have 8 t-shirts, some elements, some of the Keto Chow assorted drops supplements, Redmond salt, Keto Chow chocolate and raspberry cheesecake, a dozen fresh quail eggs, and the scissors for opening them. Leaf tallow that I made. We had gotten, when we went to Indianapolis, we went to Costco and bought brisket. And so all the extra, I trimmed off the outside of the brisket before we smoked it. I cooked down and made tallow out of. And then we...
jars, you posted all those jars.
Yes. And I thought, oh, everybody here who's in the group wouldn't mind having it. And then a thing of ghee and a cookbook that I have sitting in my office that I'm not using. So let's see, what do we got going here? But I thought maybe, oh, yes, and the 2 avocado pens.
Those are really cute. Before you do the drawing, or as you're about to, I noticed, okay, one of the things that we noticed earlier this year, and Evelyn pointed it out to me, and I pointed it out as well, was the fact that I didn't take any allergy medicine this year. I didn't have any issues specifically with allergies. I had like a day where I had some itchy eyes, but the cleaner I eat, the less inflamed I am, and so my body's not reacting to the allergens. Understand this, since I was a little child, I was on some version of diphenhydramine hydrochloride and pseudoephedrine hydrochloride. And they're on this list, both of them. And I was like, what? I mean, first I'm just glancing through going, oh yeah, no, both of those, but literally almost every day for decades.
Yeah.
So
I had been on allergy medications for as long as I could remember up until, I think it was last year. I think I even continued with the medication for 6-8 months after I started keto, because I didn't really believe yet that maybe I don't need all these medicines. And the more of them that I tapered off or got away from, and I realized, ooh, I didn't need that. I'm out of that la-la land. You know, I don't need to buy this one. And it has been completely shocking going off of all of
I would buy them in preparation for the season, and sometimes I would go, I'm pretty simply, I better get out and get to the pharmacy. And when they put more and more restrictions on pharmaceuticals, I was like, I got to get to the pharmacy because of the allergy med restriction. So this year I didn't even get to the point where I went and bought any, and so it was interesting. But when I see this, I'm like, what with the propensity for dementia in the family already, and the I don't have the paranoia about the low fat that or high fat that my mother always had. So she would cut fat way down, and that robs the brain of fuel as well. So between those things, but if I had, I'm sure.
Now, your mother is in a nursing home, correct?
Yeah.
With Alzheimer's?
With Alzheimer's right now.
Yeah.
She never she took a lot of other meds, but yeah, most of it was, sugar and fat issues with hers. And who knows what. Yeah, this is eye-opening just to see that.
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really eye-opening, awakening. And so if I had a doctor who wanted to prescribe anything on that list to me now, or to any of my loved ones, I'd have to really think twice about the scale of justice of the medications. It's going to fix this, but what's it doing over here? The side effects are real. Okay, Mr. Ken, what number did you draw?
045.
You
All right.
I like your shirt. Please turn around to the camera so we can see it. Yeah. Thanks, Leslie, for stopping by. And as Leslie's having to leave because she's got to get to work, but I said week number 10, but that'll be the week after Thanksgiving. She is going to do, as an occupational therapist, correct? She's going to help us do chair exercises, ways to get us moving. Thanks, Leslie. Okay, let's get together this coming week. Love ya.
I stole your keto chow.
So, okay, Ken, you want to draw a second number? Oh, I already gave them away.
Oh, no, here.
Mine
Second one.
She can't win again.
Nope. I'm done.
Okay. Have you guys tried the different keto?
We've only done the daily minerals.
You know, the daily minerals, I do the 1 ounce, whatever, 1 table, the half of a lid of the big bottle every morning. And somebody on one of these videos that I've been watching just recently said that they take them at night. Oh, Dr. Berry mentioned that Nisha yelling at him to go get the magnesium when she's having cramps and whatever.
She was just talking about it.
The last 2 nights, I have taken it in my last drink, water, coffee, whatever, before bedtime. I have not woke up with the Charlie horses and the pains in my feet. I have metal rods in both of my feet, 3 metal rods. And I can't do a lot of tippy toe stuff. Those just don't bend very well. And I'll wake up with my feet twisted under or up like that, trying to bend those little metal pieces. 2 nights in a row. So maybe I need to do daily minerals at night. He has seen such a difference that he is now starting it tonight, taking.
He started on the daily minerals. We just got them right before Keto Palooza. Right before Keto Palooza, we had a keto chow. The only thing I had before that was just the starter kit for keto chow. So that was literally my first order from keto chow came just a couple weeks before Keto Palooza, and we got the daily minerals, and then we got a little bottle of the magnesium because I thought it would be smart to get that. And then we got our keto chow. And so we started taking the daily minerals right away. I did.
Yes.
And then he started taking them when we got back from Keto Palooza. Yeah.
So try, I don't know what time during the day you take them or if you kind of nurse them through the day. Try before bedtime if you have trouble.
You will.
You will.
Yeah. So, okay, number 2, we're being real special tonight.
044.
44.
That's probably Leslie.
Okay, well, Leslie, do we draw another one or do we let her pick her gift this week coming by the house? Coming by the house this week, she'll be over. Leslie is an occupational therapist. And so we are going to, I said week number 10, then Darren pointed out week number 10 is actually Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That would be a good day to work on the exercising. But she's gonna just show us some good countertop, sitting in the chair, ways to just move, to help us get a little bit more movement into our bodies. So I think that'll be fun, something different to do. So, let's see, handouts discussion. Darren gave us church information. Leslie excited with her chaffle making, the drawings. Okay. chit chat. We can talk about anything else. How's it going, Darren, at your house with you? You mentioned you're starting a intermittent fasting.
Yeah, I started that this week.
Uh-huh.
Battling a little hunger in the mornings, but getting used to it. Last weekend, I hadn't lost any weight that week, and I was kind of down about that. But I just out of sheer curiosity, in the afternoon the other day, after I got out of the shower and got dressed, I decided I'd step on the scale just to see. I figured I'd be heavier than what I was at the weekend, but I'd actually lost 2 pounds in the middle of the afternoon, wet from a shower and just dressed.
That's what I said to her. I was like, I got on the scale what? I'm from the shower and I still had lost something. That's disturbing because usually you try to calculate the most safe time. When you're supposed to get some progress.
Yeah, typically the mornings are usually lower, and I usually try to weigh Sunday mornings when I'm up at like 4 o'clock in the morning or so, or 4:30, and stuff. But
I know my time for weighing was first thing in the morning. I'd get up, I'd go pee, so I didn't have to weigh those ounces of pee before I'd even take a sip of coffee. Make sure I didn't have socks on if I slept in socks overnight.
And before your shower, so you don't have extra wet.
Yeah, all of this,
The body absorbs things,
Right.
There's a whole process to when you weigh. To make sure you're the lightest possible.
It's a psychological process.
We weighed on the 15th of October when we started Triple B&E, and I put the scale in the second shower that we just use as a broom closet now, and I haven't gotten it out. I can't wait until our 31 days or whatever is up to see. But I really feel that this isn't so much for a weight loss going on right now. It's my internal healing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't show up on the scale. And you might find this the same thing, Darren, is that as your body's healing inside, that's a lot of work going on. So it might not be the belly blubber or the butt flab.
When you cut the carbs out and everything, did you increase your protein intake there?
Yes,
So
I'm eating larger portions of meat during the day.
That's essential, right? To make sure that you stay healthy. But the other part of that is that immediately, especially as soon as you start to lose a few pounds and the inflammation drops, you can be more active. So by eating protein and being more active, now you're going to gain weight and muscle weight, and all of a sudden you get on the scale and your head you're just going to pound it because you're not making any progress. But we can't lie to ourselves about that. Progress is not seen there at all times. It's something.
Right.
But,
if you add more fat, even if it means you have to go get that tablespoon of butter and stick it in your coffee, it'll help.
3 tablespoons of butter and a tablespoon of MCT oil in my coffee every day.
All right.
I have to have
400.
I have to have 300 to 400 calories of food in me to get my gastric juices flowing for a med I take in the mornings. That's why it's so much.
Yeah.
but otherwise it won't work as well, and then I will start hearing things, imagining things, and don't need that.
No, definitely. So one way to gauge too is if you're getting enough fat is poop control. If you're having diarrhea, you're taking in too much fat. If you're having constipation, you're not getting enough fat. So it's called poop control.
I like that.
There's Nancy. There's Cindy.
Yeah, Nurse Cindy. We did watch one of her videos today too.
Is that a Nurse Cindy? Nurse Cindy is her first control?
Yeah, she talks about poop quite.
I've had a few good one-ons with her.
When you take an animal to the vet, what's the first thing they do? How is their stool?
Yeah,
They ask about it because that is a way to gauge their health.
and the
So-
vets will ask, what are you feeding your pet?
Yeah.
But how many of our doctors will say, what are you eating and how's your poop?
Never. I've never heard my doctor say it.
No. So we need to maybe
If
go.
they ask somebody on keto, you tell them what you were eating, they'd probably tell you were gonna die soon anyway,
Oh, I took
Yeah.
a picture of what was recommended at work this week.
And now you
so-
work for the local school system, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So our health and wellness space at school is the back of the bathroom door. That's where they post up all of our,
And how many
Things
people
in
look
school.
at the back of the bathroom?
well,
door?
if you're sitting there for a while,
Oh,
you'd be
okay.
scrolling like a cereal
Yeah.
box when you're a kid, you
Okay.
know?
Stall door? Okay, I thought you meant the regular.
Inside, outside, yeah.
So it says diabetes awareness, and it had, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 34 million people in the United States have diabetes. There are two main types of diabetes, type 2 and type 1. Now we also know there's type 3, which is dementia.
Yes.
Things that most common signs, I get this: thirst, the presence of ketones in urine, frequent urination, fatigue, extreme hunger, slow healing, sores, unexplained weight loss, and frequent infections. Then it says complications of uncontrolled diabetes. That's what that was saying, the common signs. And then uncontrolled, you could have pain, heart and blood vessel disease, rashes, blisters or boils, nerve damage, and kidney damage. Get this, what can help manage diabetes?
Oh, this is gonna be a good one.
Monitor your blood sugar, undergo insulin therapy.
And how do you do that? They don't give you clues
Nope.
like that. Okay.
Eat fruits, vegetables, and lean proteins and whole grains. Monitor your weight and body mass index, which I think is useless. BMI is
Right,
useless.
yeah.
Do 30 minutes of aerobic exercise a day. Well,
Because you can outrun diabetes.
Oh, I like that. That's why you do this exercise, to outrun the diabetes.
yeah.
Until your legs fall off.
Then right next to it, there was another poster with a recipe: sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes stabilize your blood sugar. They support eye health. They reduce inflammation. They improve digestion, protects cardiovascular health, and maintain a healthy weight. Really? I thought they were a starch.
Yeah.
Don't they just turn to sugar in your body? Get this, the recipe that they put with sweet potatoes. 2.5 pounds of sweet potatoes, 5 tablespoons of butter. I like butter. 3 tablespoons of honey. That's sugar. Cinnamon, salt, pecans, old-fashioned oats, sugar, brown sugar, sugar. 4 types of sugar in one recipe meant to stabilize your blood sugar.
Right.
Using a starch to stabilize, like a high fiber starch.
But see, that way it'll last longer and not cause such
So,
spikes.
but what-
Then you add all that sugar.
But then you
When
add
see-
honey, brown sugar, and old-fashioned oats, and guess what?
Yeah.
You've just spiked your blood sugar beyond
You
what
did.
you should, and that's more sugar in your bloodstream than you should have, like, in a week.
In a year.
Well, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of honey.
Oh,
That's 5 tablespoons, and the most your body can handle is what, 1 teaspoon of sugar?
Well, yeah.
Not
That's
including
what's
the oats
in
and
your body at all
the
times.
potatoes.
And higher in the insulin
and your
process.
liver will take
All
care
your
of
body can handle at one time is 1 teaspoon of sugar. And they've got sweet potatoes, honey, sugar, and oats in one recipe that says it's gonna help stabilize your blood sugar.
Did a
Right.
calculation, what do you think the grams of sugar carbohydrates would be?
They don't have the calculation on your recipe.
No, they're not gonna do that to you, then.
Do they say where that information, probably from ADA.
Probably.
Assured Partners.
It's not from Abbott Laboratories?
Yeah.
And then
Assured
the other
Partners,
one-
all the ones that make all the diabetes medication.
Isn't that crazy? So, yeah, that's the one that really gets me is, okay, so it went in for, my dad's dialysis. I knew that he would be there and that I would be able to go ahead and see what was going on, and had an appointment with the dietitian. And she said that his blood work was doing pretty good, but he was low on protein and albumin. And I said, well, yeah, because they don't give him very much protein over at Virgin, you know. And she does want him to increase his fats and his protein. Well, perfect. And the list of veggies, you know, so she was okay with, as long as it does, with all the foods, as long as they don't interrupt some of the problems. So too high sodium, especially when you've got kidney issues, right? So once you get rid of the sugar, those kidney issues are going to go down, and then he can handle the sodium again because he can process them again. So that's not a worry. Eventually, he'll be able to add it back in. But potassium is always a big worry. He wasn't too far out of line on potassium, but his biggest thing is protein. She said, but really? Most of these people come in with it much, much worse than his. So thankfully, his blood level was not too bad with all of the little things. So I was asking her questions. You've got these on here as far as healthy fats.
Uh-oh.
And they weren't healthy. But then she said, make sure you stay away from the saturated fats. You know, you don't want meat fats. I was like, but wait. You said he should eat more eggs, so you want him to only eat egg whites? Oh, no. He eats the whole egg. Like, but that's fat, and it's from a protein source. So why? I'm confused. You know, I had to play dumb and try to find. Oh no, you get the whole egg. I said, so the whole egg's okay. And you know, but meat fat not okay, especially in processed foods. Well, she doesn't want processed foods that that have lots and lots of additives. And what she was really worried about was all the additives that they said. Well, we buy really clean stuff, so that's not a problem there. And so it was a good talk. I said, what is our problem if we go low sugar, low carbs, and all that? She goes, no, not at all. You know, he doesn't need it. And she wasn't, because she's not a dietitian that's trying to control his sugar and throw it back in. She just wasn't concerned about lowering it. So that's fine. He doesn't need that. That's not going to impact that. So the good thing is that by lowering his stuff, it's not going to be a problem with his dialysis. But there are all the oils and all the other stuff, it included, make sure that you have plenty of canola oil and all of these other really bad oils. And so, because she doesn't want the meat fats. I was like, yeah. I said, well, that's really just poison because it comes from rapeseed, which is just a throwaway seed and throwaway oil. If you eat it by itself, you'll kill somebody. So, they
literally poison.
Literally poison. So they're like, well, let's see if we can make something out of it. So they did, and then they gave it to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was just all kinds of other things on the list, but she wasn't as concerned about that as just making sure he gets more protein. So that's the win. That's the win.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have to argue or anything like that. She was really sensible. But she did say, if you need to, give him a protein shake. That's okay. Here are some coupons.
For Ensure?
Ensure, but not Ensure because they have the other ones that are more pricey when you're on dialysis.
Oh, okay.
Which is basically Ensure, but with a higher price tag. All made by the same company.
Uh-huh.
So Ensure, and then like Noru, and I think that was the name of it. And then the other one was Glucerna.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all made by the same company, all by Abbott Laboratories, which is also this company that makes the insulin. So, and the first and second
insulin
ingredients
is giving you the things that are supposed to be protein shakes that have carbohydrates.
This much protein, and first and second ingredient are usually cornstarches and corn
That
syrup.
sounds like having the police officer that arrests you on the jury and his partner as the judge.
Right, and it's
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I'm definitely not against police, but just using that as a little scenario.
It's like wait a minute, who is this? And as soon as I saw that it was an Abbott Laboratories thing, she goes, oh, thank you for the coupon. I'll just throw that away.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Did you ask for further documentation, or where does she get her information?
Well,
maybe she would do a little more research then to come up with where this information that she's giving you is coming from, and maybe she'll find some of this newer information that's only been out here for what, 20 years?
Right. Yeah. 100 years, but 20,
Well,
20 with more
published.
recent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't ask her that, but I suggested, or I asked, do you recommend shakes? And she said, if you can't get somebody to eat, then they need a protein shake. If you don't have one that you like, then these are good ones, but they're very pricey. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna buy those because they're just not healthy, they're not balanced, and so I'm not worried about those. And she did suggest that there were certain days where they offer certain sales and that kind of stuff. And I think that they're just told to push that particular type. But she said it would be better if you gave them whole foods, not the shake. And so the dietitian at the hospital was like, give him the shake, he needs the shake. And instead of give him instead of ask, get more protein in him or get more, food in him, she literally was trying to give him the shake.
So she has stepped over the line on the healthier end of where he should be. She's an advocate for it. So maybe that is the people that you need to also work with to get her even further into the correct field of this is what they need for dialysis.
Yeah.
Where your dietitian at the hospital, we need to work on those people.
Yeah.
But the idea that they're, 2 arm lengths away telling you something completely. Anytime that you're confronted with information, good or bad, ask for the documentation on it. As all of these videos that I present here, each of the doctors has under the YouTube video where they get all their information from. If they refer to a study, research, whatever you want to call it, they show their documentation. Right. So I would think the other side of the coin, they ought to be doing it too, instead of just saying, oh, in God we trust.
Well,
in God we trust, but
every time that they've given me one from the Birchhaven and the hospital, which is essentially the same company.
Right.
They've said, here's the stuff, and it was all from the ADA. And so it's like, well, that's fine, but that's just junk, because it's nothing but propaganda. They just say, this is balance, and it has this is the proper nutrition for the myplate.gov, and then the other portion of it, which is the ADA, which is the diabetic version, which is basically the same plate with a little more sugar, really, if you look at it. But they're higher fiber, so that it slows it down. But when you look at it, that is literally the reason that there's less protein in my dad's diet and why he's coming in subpar, because that's where he's getting his meals right now. He didn't start dialysis until he went to that. So when they started and this was a November lab the lab that she showed me was because it was during the time he's been in Birchhaven. So they're following that portion control, and he's eating the portion control of the protein that they get. So it's like, Dad, you need to ask for more protein. And I said, you do have that option. And he's been very clearly saying that there's a huge disconnect with the dietitians and the cooking staff. They still put potatoes on. He refused them and
not potato salad.
Well, and
so we ate it.
Yeah. Well, but last time he just wrote to me yesterday and said that they sent them. He wrote to me this morning that this happened yesterday, and said that they gave him potato salad, and he refused them and asked for a leafy green salad. So a little better. I said, good choice, Dad.
But the thing is, he's gonna start starving if he doesn't have good fats.
And I told him, you gotta add those other things.
So we've been trying, we've not been successful at going every day, but I've been trying to go every day and give him like a piece of keto chow cheesecake or something like that, so that would have the good fats and some vitamins in
Have
it.
you made brown butter bites?
No, not yet.
Oh, they're good. Matter of fact, I got 2 pounds of butter.
I did have a recipe for somebody that said it was easier to make if you make them in the oven. Like you literally slice off a small piece of it and you put it in like a muffin tin.
You blend
and you just bake it,
and
you just bake it so that you don't burn it or whatever. You don't have to stir it and a million times or whatever. You just put them in the muffin and then you let them cool and pop them out.
Yeah. I like, and I think Ken likes it better now that I've even started going darker with the little crunchies in the bottom as you're cooking it on the skillet on the stove. Yes.
But she loves
And I'll even crumble up bacon and put them in the mold.
Those are good too.
And then put the brown butter on
You
it.
could pop one of them in your mouth with nothing else, it's good.
I've only ever tried brown butter one time and I failed, so I had to chuck the recipe that I was working on, but that was long before keto, so maybe I could do it.
You're working with butter a lot more. You didn't realize how fragile it was when you first started.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll try it maybe. But
I have made the brown butter like that, and then the extra crumblies that are still in the bottom of the pan after I've filled all the molds, I'll do with my finger. It's like nothing goes to waste around here. So, have you experimented with making any kind of brown butter or anything fancy?
Nothing fancy keto wise. No.
Okay.
No, I haven't. I've found I'm making more of my meals now than what I did in the past because I usually ate dinner with the family, but now with my sister's still refusing to cook keto friendly meals. I mean, usually I could have the meat, but that would be about it. You know, I might have to throw some pork rinds or something on the plate to go with it. But here lately, she's been going off the rails. Like she made a honey glazed ham that she told me she'd cut some ham off and just let me have the ham. But I read what it was cured with, and 2 of the first 4 things were sugar. So I was like, no, that's going to have at least 4 or 5 carbs per 2 ounces, and I'm going to need a lot more than 2 ounces.
Yeah. Well, we stopped at Aldi's on the way here, and that reminds me, they have standing rib roast, $7.99 a pound. You're limited to 1 per person.
I was in there this morning and I looked. I couldn't find one on the shelf.
They had some, and we each got 1. And we'll go back, $7.99, and they're good.
What were they? Were they just the roast themselves, or did they have other stuff in them? Because there was only one thing I didn't look at. I didn't look at the one that had like the potatoes and everything.
No, these are just the meat.
Were those in the case?
On the bottom. Yeah, when you go into the store on the far left-hand side, almost to the back of the store.
They must have restocked them after I got there because I was looking for them.
Really good, and we spent $120 on buying a couple because we got a couple of big ones.
They got
they're that big.
Yeah. So I take your pictures of the countertop.
So they're really big.
Not all of them. There's different sizes.
There's some smaller ones in there.
Yeah, because I know my sister won't want to spend $50 on a roast or something like that.
Well, you know, when you figure $7.99
he had a heart attack, and after he got out of the hospital from that, he'd come home and kill her. But
I had looked at some of the other jerky and meat sticks as I was walking around that way.
Mhm.
We
And
sometimes do the biltong, but
yeah,
not all of them. It's cleaner than most beef jerkies, but I think, does it have raisin juice in it or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Was it?
different ways to hide sugar.
Yeah, it's like raisin juice, but it's very little, and it's pretty clean. Other than that, I think.
Well, what I was finding was it was like beef and then some kind of sugar
Yeah.
was coming
Yeah.
up as the second ingredient.
Right.
Yeah.
But then when
That's
you
the
read
second.
the nutritional value, there's no sugars listed. And it's like, that's because they're going with such a small serving, but it might say 4 or 8 servings on the package. I'm sorry, I'm gonna sit down and eat that whole thing probably.
Well, they're
Yeah.
supposed to round.
Yeah.
And so
They can
Yeah,
round down to 0
you
if
can round
it's
down
under
to
a half.
And that's why
Per
they do
serving.
such,
Yeah.
little
They give
servings.
you 1 ounce servings and, that's, it's less than 1, so they don't put it in there. And
Yeah.
you start adding that.
So I'm still doing the BBB&E, and I took lamb from Aldi, and then I took maybe 1.5 pounds of ground beef, and I mixed them together, and I put Italian seasoning and 1 egg in there, and I made tiny little meatballs. So I had
The house
meatballs for
smelled
lunch
amazing.
today.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I use Maria Emmerich's recipe for the Italian seasoning. It's herbs de Florence.
Yeah.
That's
I
her
have even cut
recipe.
back on most all the herbs during this time for us.
Yeah.
I am using like the Redmond seasoned salt, the
Yeah.
smoked salt, but I'm not adding any of the other herbs, and we grew a lot. We have a lot in our pantry that are dehydrated of our fresh herbs.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, we could try without,
Sure.
just to see, knowing that, and we've talked about it before, the nightshade vegetables.
Yeah.
When I found out how they affected me, how I got to hurting so bad and being
They're highly,
itchy
they're highly
all over.
inflammatory and,
And I love peppers.
you don't realize what they're doing.
So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna go cleaner, as clean as I can during this
Yeah.
trial.
During the BBB&E, for me, it was a reset because I had gotten to the point where I was drinking 1.5 pounds of coffee a day, and he was barely getting the other half.
I was like, I had a cup and I come back and there's nothing.
It was gone.
I got
So,
getting
It was a reset for me to cut down on the coffee, cut down on all the things with the coffee that I never counted, because it's like, oh, it's just a little bit of almond milk or it's just a little bit of stevia, but it adds up when you're drinking that much. And the other thing was, I had went through a period of super high inflammation because of stress right before Keto-Palooza, and surprise, when your father-in-law goes into the hospital the day you get back from Keto-Palooza, and you're so I have noticed that my body has been more inflamed, and after hearing, was it Dr. Tony Hampton say that 80% of your health comes from the food you eat, but 20% comes from stress and sleep. So
Right.
I've been trying to make myself go to bed by 10 o'clock every night. Now, I haven't made it every night, but my thing is, like, I wanted to focus on sleeping better and trying to de-stress, but the stress seems to keep going up. And I have noticed that my body has been inflamed. And so when I started the BBB&E, I was just like, I need this because I need to make sure that it's not the food that is causing my flare-ups, because I have so many things like just not going right in my body right now, but I haven't had these issues in over 4 years.
And you know it's not the food you're putting in.
And I know it's not the food.
So just knowing
So
what Dr. Hampton said.
I'm like, I need to find a way to healthfully get rid of the stress, but I have all these outside things weighing on me, and I'm just like, I can't get rid of it. And it's just, sometimes you just gotta keep going through it.
I had one thing happen Sunday. I had, another reason I'm coming around here is I want to show you in front of the camera. I wasn't going to even mention about it, but what stress does to our bodies. I had Sunday service and somebody had just made a comment that got me so upset. We work as greeters out here, and somebody who I respect her opinion and everything made a comment. And I got so upset over it. It was like, I want to go out and sit in the car and not even be in the church. And then I went home and found out that a lady who was like a second mom to me growing up had passed away. And that's okay. She's like 90, she was 95 years old. I let Kim read her obituaries and then another story that had been published in the paper. And she had done 4-H for 50-some years. She led this and led that. It was within the last 6-8 years, her sons took her ladders away from her, so she quit trying to climb up and do the thing. Sure. She had bought her farm, back in the early 60s when her kids were all, her 3 boys, she was a single mom, and her 3 boys were little. She wanted them to grow up on a farm like she had done and whatever. She's had a very full life. She has touched hundreds, thousands of people. She's made lap quilts. I can't remember what the story said, how many hundreds through the course of her sewing. She was the one that taught me how to sew with my 4-H group. And anyways, so I wasn't grieving for her, for the loss of her.
But the remembering brings stress too.
And how her sons, her 2 remaining sons, are dealing with it. And so many other people who she touched. I know she's going to be in a good place. I know I'm going to see her again. Great rapture is going to come. Marietta's going to be right there with me. But I didn't realize the combinations. Plus, I went home and I was feeling sick already. And we were sitting in the living room talking. We ate dinner. Nothing, that was strange to me. And I had been scratching without realizing it. And I have broken out again.
Yeah.
From this stress in my body.
Yeah.
Coming out like this.
Yeah.
So there was nothing else that was different.
Right.
Other than stress. And I used to, my arms were covered this way. I still have that issue. When Ken and I met, I would be just a mess. The neighbor lady who's commented, I remember having to tell you, quit scratching.
Yeah.
And doctors always just said it was my fibromyalgia. It feels like I have bugs crawling under my skin. Bugs crawling on me, but they're under my skin. And I don't even realize I'm doing it.
Right.
And so to have this happen this week, it's like, okay, that happened. I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling best today as I have in a week now. But it was just like, whoa, stress.
Yeah. Yes. I've had a lot of flare-ups and a lot of issues that I have not had in well over 4 years.
Yeah.
Like my last kidney infection, I had probably a month after starting keto, and I think my body was fighting back, going, no, don't do this, don't do this. And so I've had that flare up. I've had other things. I've had rashes pop up. I got acne for the first time. I have not had acne in 4 years. And all of a sudden I'm like, why do I look like a teenager? And so I was like, it's just been a whole lot of stress, like from every angle, It's just, and you can't control how other people's health is gonna be. You can't control if your kitty is gonna pass away. You can't control these kind of things.
What other people say to you. I could not control what she said. All I can control is the way I
respond to
react
it, how you feel about it.
Right.
And your feelings are valid no matter what. But then you have to I do all the soul searching mind thing. It's like, did she mean it? Did that person mean it to be harsh? Did that person not understand what they were saying? Did they not understand who they were talking to, that I would take it this way? And you play it back in your head a million times.
Self-manufactured stress from overanalyzation.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
and I know for myself, sorry to interrupt again.
No,
but,
you're fine.
I immediately start thinking and saying to myself, well, I deserved that. I deserve to be talked to that way. Or, oh yeah, I was wrong. And I could feel myself cowering down and wanting to hide under the
You are a
table.
precious, wonderful child of God. No one deserves to be taught that way, because you were created in His image, and you are wonderful and fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes, and you know what? You weren't here for the Bible verse that Ken had this evening. I will just read you the Bible verse. You made all of the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. He chooses these verses not knowing what's going on inside of me.
And somebody knows what's going on inside.
Yes, this is 2 weeks in a row. We've had, what did you call it, Darren? What is the discussion?
Oh, heated fellowship?
Heated fellowship, yes. Ben, our lead pastor, and his wife, he has commented before about, heated fellowship when they have discussions. But Ken, matter of fact, you chose this verse, I think last week. You said you had sent, but I hadn't read it until yesterday when we were going through and getting everything ready for today. And here, this verse, God had to give to him before I had the comments made, before I had the reactions, before the death.
So the only thing I feel that, well, probably a lot of things are different, but in thinking about the stress that I'm coming through.
Yes.
And I'm coming through it. I'm not going to be stuck in it forever. But the stress that I'm coming through right now versus the stress before I started keto. Before I started keto, I also had depression because of everything else going in my body. So with the depression, any little stress, physical ailments, problems, sores, infections, anything like that, it almost tipped me over the edge to the point that I didn't want to live. I didn't want to have anything to do. And the pain had gotten so great that I didn't think I could live much longer. So yes. I had depression on top of all of that because my mind wasn't clear and my heart wasn't focusing on the right things. And so now, even though there's stress in my life, it's like, but I know I'm doing the right things and moving forward. I can't control the amount of stress that's going to be put on me. But in reacting to it, starting with a healthy body first.
Yes.
Starting with a healthy, clear mind that is not in a depressed mode. Starting with the best me I can be at this point in my life, I receive it as that stress that I can't control. So my body is punishing me for stress, but it's not, my mind isn't punishing me. And I don't want to not be here, you know? The stress is great, but Jesus never promises that you won't have a stress-free life. He never promises stress-free. He never promises no problem. All he has said is he will walk with me through the problems.
Yeah.
So I can't say that my life is going to be free from complications from now on. I can say that when a complication arises, Jesus will be with me.
He's holding your hand through it all. So. And that's something that's been really hard for me to learn in my infant state of having returned to the church over the last 3 years.
That he kept you safe and brought you back to him.
Yeah.
And you might feel like you're in an infant state, but he protected you the whole time and
He
brought
did.
you back to him.
He walked along with me when I was kicking him.
Yeah.
You know, fighting and screaming all the way.
He did the same for me. When I was young, I turned my back on him for a number of years, and he brought me back and he showed me what I needed to do. And there's a time that he cuddles you and he says, and he, you know, like when you're a toddler and he's like, oh, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And there's another time when he kicks you in the pants and says, get up and do it.
Yeah. There was a time during this time frame where my sister-in-law, Ruthie, sent me a message and said, I'd really appreciate if you weren't so negative. It could have been profanity. It could have just been being bad. Excuse me. Posting wrong things on Facebook. And I remember telling her, well, maybe I'm tired of listening to you telling all the stories about God. That was my response to her. But her and my brother came from the little town they live in Alaska. And my brother is like, oh my goodness, I have to admit to this in public, probably 75, 76 years. And she is probably 78 years old. They came from Alaska for Ken's and my wedding because they just so believed and were so excited for the changes that they had seen, that they had prayed about in my life.
You're a new creature.
I am. So, speaking of Ken, you want to close us out in prayer?
Yep, I sure will.
What's up, Darren? Come on.
Lord, thank you. Thank you for blessing us and making us all different and unique. Thank you for letting us learn about Alzheimer's. I know I picked up on quite a bit of what's happening to the brain. And Lord, just please give us that direction when we need it, when we are weak. Because you know the bad guy is going to show up. I also pray for your family because of the loss of a pet. I know those are family. I know what this feeling is, and Lord, be with them. And please keep our eyes and minds open to learn anything new or to teach anybody. Just, Lord, put somebody in my life. And let us all be safe traveling home tonight. And Lord, I always pray to you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.